Hi, I'm Damien, welcome back to the channel, and in this video we'll be looking at the theory test. Before we do that, what will be great is if you could comment below on how you're getting on preparing for it. Whether you're struggling, whether you're finding it quite straightforward, are there any particular topics that you are less confident about? Are you worried about the hazard perception? Are you not sure when to click, why you're clicking? Anything that you need any help with, please comment below, I'll get back to you. Okay, let's go. So, the theory test, something that you need to pass before you can even book your driving test. Within the video, we'll have a look at both sections of the test. So we'll first of all look at the multiple choice section, and then we'll head straight into the hazard perception to finish off with. Within the video, we'll also have a look at tips and advice that I work with when my students are preparing for their theory test, and also we'll share with you some advice and tips that my students gave to me once they'd passed their test as well. We'll also include apps and things like that that you can use to help you along your theory test, and also the changes that are happening to the theory test once we come out of lockdown. Okay, multiple choice section first. You've got 57 minutes to answer 50 questions based on the highway code, and the pass rate for this is 43 out of 50. Now, you'll notice on the screen that the format is very straightforward. So you have one question and a number of options. When I'm working with my students, those that don't tend to pass on the questions, it's often to do with the fact they haven't read the question thoroughly. Now, the advice is here, because you've got so much time, read each question thoroughly. Read it a couple of times. Just make sure that you are happy with what the question is. It's very clever how it's written. Sometimes there are double negatives or double positives, which would obviously then change the outcome of the answer. So read each question thoroughly. You'll then notice once you've answered that question, if you are happy, you can click on the next question. You've also got the option as well as to flag that particular question. So the idea is that once you have answered that question, if you're not sure, you think there could be a couple of potential options here, you can flag that question and move on. Which means at the end of your test, you get a summary of the questions that you've answered, with also a link to your flagged questions, which means that you can go back and review your flagged questions, make sure you're happy with the answer, and then click on the remove flagged option, and it will then take you to your next flagged question if you flagged more than one. One of the things that you need to be made aware of is that there's going to be a slight change to the multiple choice section. Still going to be 50 questions, still within 57 minutes, but now 3 of those questions will contain a short video clip, as you can see on the screen at the moment. The idea is you'll watch the video and answer 5 questions based on what you see. We don't know when that will be rolled out. I would imagine as soon as we're out of lockdown, that will be introduced then. Okay. There are a few key areas and questions that you might want to pay particular attention to when it comes to revising for your theory test, and it's a few areas that I've stumped my students when I've worked with them in the past. The first questions relate to tunnels, and in particular driving through tunnels. There's one question that asks, if your car was to set on fire, what would you do? Now, it's a no-brainer. No doubt, on the first sign of a fire, you'd get out and run for it. I know that's what I would do. However, the official answer is, if it's safe to do it, drive out the tunnel, get out of your car, and then run for it. Weird, eh? Okay, the next area that sometimes baffles students are motorways and questions that relate to motorway usage. There are some questions that relate to motorway signs, so what signs that you might encounter when you're driving on a motorway. Things like when lanes are closed, what does that look like? So I would say have a look at some of those questions in that topic area. Okay, the next series of questions that you might want to have a look at is first aid and some of the medical questions that come up. So for example, there are some questions that relate to what are the signs and symptoms of dealing with shock, for example. How long should you treat a burn for? Or how deep should you compress the chest when conducting CPR? So it's worth having a look at. Okay, the next area that does sometimes baffle students are around towing of caravans and trailers. Now, you may never tow anything in your life, however, there are definitely some questions in there that's worth having a look at. It's things like what is the speed that you're allowed to drive on a motorway or dual carriageway, stability devices that relate to caravans and things like jockey wheels. Again, there's sections on that, so again, worth having a look at. Okay, and lastly, an area that's worth definitely having a look at are things like your legal documents. So things that relate to different levels of insurance. How does third-party firearm theft differ from fully comprehensive? What documents that you need to have in order to insure a car? Again, some of the areas that you've probably never had to look at before or ever had to get involved with, but definitely worth having a look at. Okay, so in terms of hazard perception, I'd like you to get involved with this next bit. If you are practicing and you're revising for your theory coming up, when it relates to the hazard perception, what are the things that you're struggling with, if at all? Is it when to click? Is it how many times can I click? Are you not really getting your point of it? If that relates to you, comment below and I'll get back to you. Okay, the last section of your theory test is the hazard perception section. Now, for those who are not sure what this is or not come across this yet, basically on the day of your test, you will be asked to watch 14 short video clips. And those video clips will be of a first person perspective, so you as the driver driving down a variety of different types of roads, so things like motorways, dual carriageways, country lanes, housing estates, city centres. And the idea is that during that video clip, something will happen that will cause you as the driver to have to respond in one of three ways. And that's either stopping completely because something has pulled out on you and therefore the best option is to stop. Number two, slowing down. Maybe there is a vehicle ahead of you that you can see that is in trouble, and by slowing down it will allow you to then anticipate what's going to happen and make the right course of action. And number three, it's changing direction. So there might be some videos that you notice that you'll have to get round a vehicle, a cyclist or maybe a car emerging from a junction, that again it's the best thing is to go around it. So that's what you're looking out for. Okay, to pass that as a perception, you need to be scoring a minimum of 44 points out of 75. How are those points allocated? Basically, each video you will watch contains a maximum of 5 points. The quicker you see that hazard developing, the more points that you're going to get. And in order to record that, what you need to do is as soon as you see that hazard developing into something that you need to do something about, you have to either tap on the mouse button when you go for the real thing, or if you're using an app on your phone, tap on the screen. What you'll notice is a little red flag will appear in the corner of the screen. And if you've tapped it right at the correct moment, you're going to get more points. If you're a little bit slower in tapping on the mouse or the screen, you're going to get less points. So the slower you see it, the less points you're going to get, basically.
Okay, here's an example of one of the videos. So straight away I'm looking at the road ahead. Right, that car's a little bit too far away. It's not going to affect what I do as a driver. I'm still scanning. Nothing's, right, I've clicked a couple of times. As you can see, it's got a couple of red flags in the corner. And again, that white car isn't going to stop. So therefore, the safest course of action for me as a driver is to stop completely and let him get through, and off we go again. So I'm scanning the road. And I'm looking at the environment. I can see that obviously it's a country lane. We've got tractors in fields, so they could be coming out of fields. I'm looking at the roadhead still. Nothing's happening just yet. Still, I've got some signs here that might tell me something, and as they do, obviously we've got a bridge. Expect something to come over that bridge potentially. Can't see anything. There we go, a white van. Now again, I've got through. Right, brilliant. Okay, so there we go. We've scored 5 out of 5. Let's review that solution because it did happen a little bit too quick. Okie dokie. So straight away, as I'm looking at this particular clip, I'm looking at, again, the type of environment I'm driving on. It's a country lane, but looking directly in front of me, we can see that we have got this underpass. We've got this, the bridge here where the trains go over. So I'm thinking, as a driver, if a car comes through the other side, how do I know that they'll stop for me? Are there any priority signs on either side of the road to tell me who's got the priority? I can't see any, so I'm going to assume that it's basically first come, first serve potentially. So I'm going to play it through a little bit longer. As you can see, I've clicked it a bit later. That car's, as I said, too far away. It's not going to affect what I do. However, this next car, I thought, well, I might click it here. It might affect it. But here we've got a little bit of explanation as to what's happening. So a car is entering the rail underpass well ahead of you. However, watch out for traffic that is hidden further back by the bend in the road. Okay, I'm going to play it through, and this is where I got my 5 points. I'm just going to rewind a little bit. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, this bar indicates the scoring zone. So because I clicked it right in the sweet spot, right nice and early, I've got 5 points. If I was slightly delayed, I'll get 4 points, 3 points, 2 points, and clicking here would result in no points. So there we go. Okay, I'll run it through a little bit further. And again, even though I clicked a lot later, that click didn't disqualify me from the entire clip because it related to what's happening on the screen. So that was absolutely fine. So again, I was scouring the road, having a look, looking perhaps for vehicles coming out of fields, but as you can see here, we've got signs telling us of the bridge and of animals and farm animals as well. Again, key information here, there must be a weight limit attached to the road ahead. You can see the roads and the bridge is very narrow, so I'm expecting a car to come the opposite way. I'm getting ready to click, and as soon as a white van came round, as you can see on the screen, that's where I clicked it.
So as I mentioned, the pass mark's 44 out of 75, which means actually there are 15 hazards in total. Although there's only 14 videos you watch, it does mean that one of the videos will contain 2 scoreable hazards, which means that one of the videos will have a maximum of 10 points allocated to it. So basically, watch each video right to the very end, because you don't know if that's a video that will contain 2 scoreable hazards. So here are a few tips that you might want to take away with. Firstly, and some of the questions I get asked a lot is, well, how often can I click and when should I be clicking? Well, that's quite obvious. You should be clicking when you feel that as a driver you need to be taking action by doing one of those 3 things that I mentioned earlier. I get a lot of questions about, is there a maximum number of clicks that I should be clicking? Well, not really. As long as you're clicking in relation to what you're seeing, you'll be okay. If you're there clicking at random, you know, yes, you're going to get disqualified for that particular video. It's written in a way that it will throw things at you as you watch that video that you think, this could be the scoreable hazard. It might not be, but you're not going to get disqualified as long as when you're clicking relates to what you're seeing. Another tip that you might want to take away with you is have a think about the environment that the video's in. So for example, if you're on a country lane, think about what it might be. So it could be a tractor that's pulling out of a field. It could be some walkers on the opposite side of the road. So pay particular attention to the environment that it's in. If it's on a motorway, have a look at the slip roads that are joining the motorway. It could be a car that wants to join the motorway. Is it a housing estate? Are pedestrians going to come out and walk out in front of you? So start thinking early on about what could the hazard be. The environment might give you a clue. Okay, finally, let's have a look at some of the tips that some of my students have shared with me once they'd passed their theory test. Firstly, make sure that you're going to go and book via the official .gov website. There are other websites out there, private companies that will charge you more to book the test for you. Don't go through them. Just make sure it's .gov that you're going through. On the day of your test, please don't forget your provisional licence. I've had a few students that have unfortunately gone to the test centre and forgotten their licence and been asked to go away and unfortunately lost their money. Just make sure that you're taking your licence with you. Another tip that they shared with me when it came to hazard perception is that whenever they were clicking to respond to a hazard that was developing, click more than once. Click twice is what they told me. The idea of that is if you're too early with that first click and you've just perhaps done it a little bit too soon, that second backup click might find that you're in that scoreable hazard, that zone that's going to get you more points. So for each time you click it more than once. That might help. Okay, in terms of apps and support for your theory test, DVSA have their own website which you can go in free of charge and practice both the questions and the videos. But the ones that I use and I've used for this video is an app called Theory Test Pro. And it's one that I give access to my students at the start of their lessons, and it's something that we talk about from day one. Now the good thing about the app is that it has a section for both the questions and the videos. And in terms of the questions, you can definitely do some quick quiz questions. You can even do a mock test and see how you're doing. My advice would be, if you're going to use the Theory Test Pro, look at the practice topics. It will break down each of the 14 categories of the questions so you can go through each one and see how you do against those categories. In terms of the hazard perception on the app, it's brilliant. There are loads of practice clips for you to have a go at. What I like most is as soon as you have completed a video, it gives you your results and it shows you where you have scored compared to where you should have scored, if that makes sense. So if you're coming out with low scores, maybe 1s or 2s, it's showing you where and when you should have clicked. Okay, that's it. If any of the areas are still unclear, you're still not sure about the questions or when to click on the videos, if I'm talking complete rubbish, which I pretty much do a lot of, please feel free to comment below and I promise I will get back to you with a suitable answer. It might not make any sense, but I promise I'll get back to you. In the meantime, what would be great is if you could subscribe, and if you can click on the little bell icon next to that, it'll alert you when I'm going to be getting videos out. Thanks as always for your support and I'll look forward to catching you soon. Bye.